It's our pleasure today to welcome as our guest preacher, Lucy O'Brien. Lucy is a youth minister and administrator at Abbey Church, which is downtown, one of our sister churches, and also is a student at UVic and part of the secretary, in fact, for the Inclusive Christians Club, which she will tell you a little bit more about. Welcome, Lucy.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for having me here. Some of you may know me a little bit, but I will introduce myself nonetheless. I'm Lucy O'Brien. As Christine mentioned, I work at Abbey Church with the youth and behind the scenes doing administration. I'm a full-time religious studies undergrad. I am a full-time parent. I'm also a secretary at Inclusive Christians, which is a student-run club at UVic. I'm not a practiced preacher, but I'm pushing myself to do more. And I am very lucky to have a practice run at your 8 a.m. service today. I grew up in the United Church in a small town in interior BC. I didn't have a lot of places to go. The town didn't offer a lot for the youth. It was really easy to stay home and play video games, get into drugs, get a job and work your life away, or go to church. So I went to church. As a teenager, I found a community that welcomed me and made me feel safe when very few other places did. I would walk in the door and I would have 100 grandparents ready to greet me and meet me wherever I was at. I felt safe to be myself there in a way I didn't have anywhere else. And when I left for college, the school I went to had no student ministry, but I did find refuge at church. I found safety in that community, and I made my friends there. And I didn't realize it at the time, but those moments were foundational to who I would later become. I was really lucky to have a mentor in the Reverend Dr. Karen Medland, who guided me through an academic understanding of Scripture that I did not have before. In my 20s, I stayed connected to church, but my faith felt less important than before. I valued the community, but I didn't put much value on Scripture. I moved from city to city in my job as an electrician and jumped from community to community, only ever staying for a couple of years at most. And while there was value in seeing the ways that different folks practice their faith and share their values, I never quite found what I was seeking. I needed a rooted and deep connection. I wanted to know my community members by name, something bigger than just sharing the same scripture and practices. God was calling me, and in today's Micah passage, you heard the call to plead your case before the mountains and let the hills hear your voice. I wasn't holding up my end of that covenant. God had been calling me in deeper, and I was only dipping my toes in the shallows. God stayed faithful to me, but what was my response? I was chasing money, following my career when I should have been chasing the Spirit, and I felt a call to change. I settled down in Victoria, met my wonderful spouse, and I dug my fingers into the soil of this beautiful island. I was ready to go deeper, but there was one issue. In the United Church where I grew up, there was no discipleship program. I didn't really know how to talk about my faith. I felt like it was like running up against a wall. We built a culture of stiffness, striving for palatability in a secular world. In fact, accelerated secularism. I didn't know how to talk about my faith. So now I'm learning in a bit of a trial by fire way. I orient myself around 2 points. I try to approach everything with this. How can I leave everyone I interact with in a better place than when I met them? And how can I empower others to feel confident lifting up the gospel of Jesus Christ in their lives? The first one was easy, at least on paper. I just share a generosity of spirit. I offer simple kindness. I give without expectation of return, and I try to show people that I see the face of God in them. Maybe it isn't easy, but it is simple. It's a very simple paradigm. Put your ideas of who someone is to the side and remember that they are divinely called by God, whether they even know it or not. Look for that angel inside everyone. But the second one is harder. How do I talk to strangers about faith, let alone empower others to do so? I feel like in the United Church, there used to be a very structured and well-funded discipleship program, but when I was coming up in the 90s and 2000s, we were much more focused on our international presence and response than we were on raising up disciples locally. So I don't have a very good guide. I read a few dozen books on discipleship, but a lot of those theories don't really translate in the real world, in this practical place where everything is always changing. The one time that I really feel I learn the most is when I see people lead by example. They don't lecture me or pile books in my lap, they just do it. They show up, they create community, and they invite people in. That kind of creating of community can only be felt. It can't be written down on a piece of paper. It's expressed and defined by action and invitation. So I'm doing the best I can to do that. A big piece of who I am is my gender identity. A lot of my life, I was told I was a boy, and I tried my best to play along. But when I finally stopped trying and failing to fit into that mold, it cost me a lot. I lost my career, I lost my job. I could no longer safely stay in construction. My days went from working hard but succeeding to working hard defending against verbal and physical attacks every time I turned a corner. I no longer felt safe doing the things I thought I would do forever. But that time was made easier by the faith leaders and the community members I had. I had never felt God's call more strongly than at that time. Like Jonah, I had been ignoring that voice in my head that called me into ministry, but now it was like a shout. The loss of my career was devastating, but it came at exactly the right time. I applied to UVic and was accepted almost immediately and started classes that January. I was able to stop pursuing the money and start pursuing wisdom. And what did I find at UVic? I found a club called Inclusive Christians. Abbey Church had given me a taste of ecumenism, but Inclusive Christians truly lives it. Inclusive Christians is a group of student Christians on campus who worship together regardless of background or tradition. It is an ecumenical club. We have faith leaders from 4 denominations and members from even more. We try to be a safe haven on campus for anyone to explore their faith, no matter where they come from. We try to be a comforting presence on campus. We give food and coffee to students passing by outside, and often we'll talk to 200 or more people in only a couple of hours. We strive to be a voice of justice on campus. We speak actively against injustice that we see in our community and abroad. We have weekly book studies, monthly Bible studies, and we worship together every Wednesday at 5 p.m., making sure to share in communion every week. We work hard to show everyone we meet that they are a beloved child of God. And in doing that, I feel that our community members are more empowered than ever to speak confidently in their faith. Which brings us to our gospel reading from today. That passage from Matthew, the Beatitudes, is very famous and it's very important. Up until recently, I discounted it. I thought it was just a summary of Jesus' teachings without much depth. It felt like a checklist. Be more humble, be more righteous, be more merciful, and if you aren't pure of heart, then you won't see God. It kind of felt like Jesus was telling off his disciples for not meeting God's standards. But I heard from an Episcopal pastor named Joseph Yu, who lives in Pearland, Texas. He taught about this just last week. He said to us, when Jesus says to his disciples, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness," Jesus is not just giving you spiritual homework. He's not just saying, go and become these things so that God will love you more. He's naming people, real people, people who are already living in those realities. This is a direct call to people who are empty, people who are grieving, and people who are exhausted, people who long for something better, people who are just trying to hold it together. He looks at them and says, "You are blessed." Not someday, not once you fix your problems, but right now, right here and now. Beatitudes are not meant to be a to-do list or a ladder to climb. This is Jesus holding a mirror up to the world. He's trying to help the disciples understand that these people, the ones who society pushes to the side, those people are already blessed. Not someday, but right now. He's speaking of those people who are out here struggling just to live an ordinary life, often not feeling very cared for or blessed whatsoever. And Jesus is saying, God is near to you. God sees you. God is not distant. God is right here beside you. We often think the blessing comes after the trials, after the struggles are done, when we finally feel the calm after the storm. But no, Jesus is saying that that blessing is here now, in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the hardest moments. God is beside us in the doubt. Jesus walks with us in the middle of grief and in our weakest moments. Jesus is with us in our longing, and when we hunger and thirst for righteousness, we will be filled. And when someone walks into Inclusive Christians, we do our utmost to say exactly that. We are a place that shows God is with you, God is here, no matter what happens in these moments of doubt. We strive to be that voice that reminds people, you are blessed. The passage in Micah we heard earlier is somewhat of a laundry list of times when God fulfilled his promises to Israel. And yet each of the stories mentioned in that passage, if you keep reading them, it includes an almost immediate betrayal of the covenant by the Israelites. Israelites turn around and act like those miracles never even happened. And it is so easy to do when you're lost in the wilderness. It's easy to forget those good things. The nation of Israel was suffering untold hardship near constantly, but God never stopped being faithful. And this gets at the heart of why student ministry matters. The reason I do the things that I do, university is a time of near constant big decisions. It's a time in the wilderness for many people. Students are confronting the realities of adulthood in a way they never have, and those realities are not small. It's never been easier to be overwhelmed with the world than right then. And that's when the church most often loses connection with these people. And when they lose sight of those blessings, when students are bombarded with the realities of how the church causes harm, we need to be there to say, you are blessed. And now more than ever, we need to be the voice that says, when you're burdened, worn down, overwhelmed, just breathe, rest, let yourself be blessed. You don't have to figure this out on your own. At Inclusive Christians, queerness and queer safety are at the heart. Gay, lesbian, and transgender folks have been the subject of so much hate and harm in the church. We are a voice to combat that. As Jesus said, blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness. Christianity has a reputation of being less than favorable towards those of us whose gender identity or sexuality don't fit the dominant social structure. God knows I face persecution for speaking out as a queer Christian, especially in a position of leadership. But that is exactly why we need to keep doing what we're doing. It's why we need to work together with other communities, just like this one, to spread that message. No matter who you are a beloved child of God. And to that end, Inclusive Christians has also partnered with the Student Christian Movement, which is a national campus movement founded in 1921 to push for social action and justice on campuses. The Student Christian Movement has not been present in Victoria for several decades, but as of now, that has changed. It gives us access not only to resources around social justice work or worship, but also leadership training and access to a global network of students fighting for justice. I traveled through Cuba this June with the United Church of Canada's national office and I traveled with a man named Marcelo Leites, who is the General Secretary of the Global Office of the World Student Christian Federation. And he was the one that turned me on to the student Christian movement in Canada. But while we were traveling through Cuba, we witnessed time and time again a model of being church that works. Membership numbers are skyrocketing across Cuba because churches have figured out how to find and offer the resources that people need. I saw a model of church that made everyone in their neighborhoods feel loved and welcomed, and I think it's a model that we can emulate. I want to bring that to life here in Victoria. And the student Christian movement can help us do that. It's also very nice to hear that they have charitable status, and therefore we are able to give tax receipts for donations. As we look at the state of the world around us, the need for a safe, inclusive student ministry has never been more important. Wealth inequality is making even just the most basic life tasks incredibly hard. There's so much uncertainty in the institutions that we used to trust, and it is very scary to be a student on your own in a new city for the first time. Inclusive Christian strives to meet the needs of today by being open and progressive and offering safety for those who are questioning their faith. In these uncertain times, we strive to make it known that God will certainly and unwaveringly love you, bless you, and hold you in his loving arms. And with your help, we will continue to do as God instructed in Micah 6. We will keep building student leaders who can plead our case before the mountains, to let the hills hear our voice. We'll continue to invite others to see the nature of God's never-ending faithfulness. And that, my friends, is good news. Thanks be to God.